In her famous book, Catherine Mansfield and Literary Impressionism, Julia van Gunsteren notes that Mansfield experimented in the form of the short story. She wrote satirical sketches, dialogues, monologues, in which she could render her memories and personal visions in a picture of everyday life. Her short stories need to be read carefully. Mansfield's narrative methods are a good deal more complex than has generally been assumed, especially by those critics who focused thematic or symbolic issues alone. Her perception of the surrounding world, the stress on form, structure, empathy, and atmosphere, so in Mansfield's terms, prose writers' weather, in a writer's subjective vision with an expressive narrator attempt to create a fictional illusion. There is an emotive correlative between images, narrator, and character in an apparently objective stance. She often renders a moment of sudden awareness in an epiphany, whereby one of her major themes, the disparity between illusion and reality, is revealed. All these characteristics are congruent with the basic concepts of literary impressionism. The term impressionism is not used by her. Only scant references to some impressionist painters may be found in her writings. Now Mansfield may be related to literary impressionism, and her short stories may be read, interpreted, and translated in a literary impressionistic manner. It is argued that no reading on Mansfield's work can be complete if the significance of an impressionist perception is not dealt with as both a methodological and a thematic component of these works. Now about narrative discourse. A narrative is a form of communication. According to Janet, every text discloses traces of narration. All narrative is necessarily diegesis, telling, and mimesis, showing, by making the story real and alive. A storyteller or narrator is present in all verbally told stories. The model of literary narrative communication is most clearly shown in Jacobson's most famous work of linguistics and poetics. Jacobson described 6 factors contributing to verbal communication: addresser or encoder, speaker, narrator, author, the addressee or decoder, hearer, reader, viewer, user, code, so usually a language system, message, text, discourse, so what is being said, context, referent, about what, the contact channel of communication, psychological or physical connection, live speech, writing, and so on. Narrative perspective is the point of view adopted by the narrator, which Janet calls focalization. So by focalization, I certainly mean a restriction of field. Actually, that is a selection of narrative information with respect to what was traditionally called omniscience. These are matters of perception. The one who perceives is not necessarily the one who tells, and vice versa. Janet distinguishes 3 kinds of focalization. So the first one is zero focalization. The narrator knows more than the characters. He may know the facts about all of the protagonists, as well as their thoughts and gestures. This is the traditional omniscient narrator. Internal focalization. The narrator knows as much as a focal character. This character filters the information provided to the reader. He cannot report the thoughts of the characters. And external focalization. The narrator knows less than the characters. He acts a bit like a camera lens, following the protagonist's actions and gestures from the outside. He's unable to guess their thoughts. About implication and contrast. Implication is a suggestion that is not expressed directly. Implication can be conveyed by different techniques. One of them is contrast. In the opening lines of the story, the author, on the one hand, describes pleasant and tranquil atmosphere on the wharf, immense, motionless on the grey crinkled water, an immense flock of gulls screaming and diving, and on the other hand, dirty and somewhat nervous, flies walking up and down the dish on the grey crinkled tablecloth, other flies clustered and swarmed at the edge, a tiny black spider raced up the ladder. So why does the author need to create such contrast? The author describes the protagonist, Mr. Hammond, as good-looking and well-dressed, strong-looking, middle-aged man, dressed very well, very snugly in a grey overcoat, grey silk scarf, thick gloves, and dark felt hat. Why does she tell the readers that he was something between the sheepdog and the shepherd?